What's up guys? My name is Mike and we are finally back out here working on the Jon boat build. We took a little month break because we have had some absolutely crazy weather. We've got a really nice week of weather ahead of us, so I wanted to make some major progress on the boat. So for today's video, I've recruited my favorite helper to assist me in getting this boat prepped and painted. All right, so without further delay, let's get started. So now that we have the boat completely cleared out, she's gonna go ahead and take out the bolts holding on the side rails here. That's gonna give us full access to the boat for prep and paint. Great job. All right, so we'll go ahead and take this off and we'll go ahead and do the same thing for the other side. All right, so I'm just putting the nuts back on the ends of the bolts here. That way we keep all of our hardware together. Makes reinstalling that much easier. All right, so now that the boat has been completely emptied of all the tools and everything else I had in there, we're just gonna go around the entire outside of the boat and scuff it with either sanding pads or sanding paper. That will just give it a nice rough texture for it to stick to it really well. So while she's working in the front of the boat, I'm gonna be working on the sides and the top. I'm just gonna be using these sanding blocks here just to rough up the surface and see how it looks.
I'm going to be sanding the bottom of the boat with this sanding block. It is a bit dirty, but I think it'll work perfectly fine. So I'm gonna get started sanding. So for this, you don't really want to see the metal, you just kind of want to get the paint off, like how I'm doing here. If you do this, I suggest wearing clothes that you're fine getting paint dust all over, because this sweatshirt that I'm wearing is probably gonna get covered in paint dust.
All right, so real quick before I do the back here, I'm gonna take this Hull ID plate off. You really wanna keep these unpainted so you can see them in the future. Plus, once this is all painted and you have a fresh Hull ID plate on, it just looks so much cleaner. So to get them off, we were just drilling the rivet out. There we go. You do the same thing with the capacity plate. That way when this goes back on, it looks nice and clean on the inside. And if you weren't aware, boats usually have a hidden Hull ID plate behind the capacity plate. And in case you've never removed rivets, you just want to find a drill bit that's slightly bigger than the hole in the center of it. You don't need to go huge, just enough to get through the center. And now these holes, if there's any rivets left in them, you can just drill right through them. And then there'll be an open spot for your new rivet when you reinstall it. Okay, so now over here, I have a spot of adhesive that wasn't coming off pretty easy. And since we're repainting, I'm gonna take it off in the easiest way I know how, and that's with a wire wheel. Now, of course, there's obviously easier ways to do this, but this is just the quickest. And since it's getting repainted, I don't have to worry about any of the paint getting messed up. I will just give it a quick sand to take off any of those scoring marks. There you go. Now it's ready for paint. It's actually super smooth. It looks like there's grooves in it, but you can't feel them at all. Paint will fill it in just fine. I'm actually gonna go ahead and use that wire wheel on a couple spots inside of the boat as well. There's this like tar, like adhesive they used around here. It almost feels like the stuff you would use for shingles or something like that on a roof. I don't know what it is. Solvents have not gotten it off. I've tried acetone. I've tried a bunch of different ways. The pressure washer got some of it off, but I'm still stuck with it like in this corner here and then on some of the sides. So I'm just gonna use the wire wheel to clean up that and then any of these random decals that don't need to be on the boat. All right, so up top here is the only spot of the boat that has some major paint damage and corrosion. So I'm just going through with the wire wheel and kicking off any of the paint that's flaking off. So if I can just go gently like this, and the paint just starts blasting off, that's how you know it's no good to paint over. I've already done about 3/4 of it, but I just wanted to show you what I was working on up here. All right, so thanks to the help of the Fantastic Four over there, we got the entire boat sanded down in record time. That was really cool. So now I'm just gonna pull this out into the driveway here. We're gonna rinse it completely down. We're gonna wash it with something like Dawn dish soap to get off any kind of oils, and then the boat will be fully ready and prepped for paint. Okay, first thing we gotta do is get all the dust off, and then we'll wash it down. Now in the water tank, I already have some degreaser, so as we're washing it down, we're also degreasing it. All right, so things are rapidly evolving in this build. This is gonna be a build all about trying new things. So something I really wanted to try was using this new Rustoleum camo paint job. Rather than doing the typical primer with the roll-on paint, that's what I was originally gonna do. This color actually matches super close to the color I wanted to use already. And this is a no primer needed spray paint for Jon boats. So now I'm actually gonna be able to get all of my painting done in one go, and that makes me really happy for a time savings point of view. So at this point, the boat has been completely sanded down, washed down with degreaser, and dried out in the sun for a couple hours. Hopefully I'll have enough paint for this. I bought 4 cans. We'll see how much this does. Usually I use those big high performance enamel cans, which last forever. These are definitely a lot less paint, but hopefully 4 of them will be enough. All right, let's see how it looks. Oh, look at that, that's perfect. I'm not gonna lie, this color actually came out so freaking good. Got it back in the garage now. All right, let me get out of the light here. The sun's just starting to set, and you can really see how well the color has blended in. I love the flat finish to it. Dang, 20 bucks. Seriously, actually, I'll tell you exactly how much. So total amount came out to $29.23 for 4 cans. I also just found that it's even cheaper on Amazon. So if you want to buy it online, they were about $5 a piece. So that would have been about 20 bucks. And yeah, this got the entire outside plus the inside, about top third of the whole boat. I went and ordered 2 more cans off Amazon since I didn't need them immediately, but they're just gonna be used for touching up anywhere I see might need it, or for the interior after I get everything else built. But overall, dang, 20 something bucks for a paint job on a Jon boat, I'm blown away. Now, the primer, Rustoleum primer, you could still apply that first before you do the spray paint. That could work. But like I mentioned earlier, if you get a scratch in this now, The color is gonna be very close to the undercolor, so you're not even gonna notice it. But if it does bother you, you just hit it with some spray paint. It blends in so nice because it's that flat color. It's not glossy where you have like different shades of gloss. I've gone over this multiple times in different areas and you can't see any overlap. So the paint blends in really well. It's gonna touch up really well. Hoping it's gonna be pretty durable. Right now, it's still in its curing process, so I'm gonna really baby it for a little while. I even got a lot of the front done. Oh, so happy with how this came out. All right, guys, well, I'm out here the next day checking on the paint, and I am so happy with how this came out. I am shocked that this can of paint was able to put a finish on it like this. Now, of course, prep work is super important. The whole boat was sanded down and washed beforehand to make sure we got a really good coverage on it. One thing I was kind of thinking as I was spraying it is that it was gonna have like a chalky finish because of just how flat the color was. But seeing it today, this is actually a completely smooth finish on the boat. It is not chalky at all. All right, guys, so last step of this is gonna be reinstalling the hull ID plates and capacity plates onto the boat. The only tools you're gonna need for this is super simple. You're gonna need your rivet tool. You're gonna need your rivets. I'm gonna be using 5/32 rivets. That is just slightly larger than the holes that were there. That way we'll be able to drill nice clean holes and get everything reinstalled in a really tight fashion. If I were to reuse the same size rivet hole, there's a good chance they're gonna be loose because I had to drill them out. So this way, we're gonna go up one size and everything will just be nice and tight once it gets installed. The only prep work I needed to do was drill out the holes on these plates here to the 5/32. It was such a small change, it didn't really take much effort to do it. The 5/32 drill bit through each hole, so something like that. And everything, you know, opened up fine. All right, so as I mentioned, this is gonna be pretty simple. First thing we gotta do is make sure that the holes are opened up enough for the rivets. Now, just as a small added precaution, I'm gonna add a little dab of silicone into each hole before I put the rivets in. That way, it'll just seal up these holes so no water can get behind the hull plate and into the transom from the rear of the boat here. And I mean a very, very small dab. The silicone I'm using is 3M 5200. This is very well known for being really good in water. Once you get this whole plate on, it's gonna be very difficult to remove. This is a very, very strong sealant. You could just use regular silicone, that would work also. I just happen to have a tube of this on hand and it's in a nice squeeze bottle, so I only need a little tiny bit. So now we're gonna go ahead and put our hull ID plate back on. Make sure it's lined up correctly. Okay. And then now we're just gonna pop these rivets on. Okay. We got a little bit of silicone that squeezed out the sides. That's okay. I'm actually gonna let that dry before I try to remove it, because if I try to remove it now, it's just gonna smear. If I let it dry, I'll be able to cut it off with a razor blade and it should come off nice and easy. Well, unfortunately, I forgot to hit record when I installed the hull ID and capacity plate, but I just did the same thing I did on the back of the boat, except I didn't use sealant because you really shouldn't run into water intrusion from the inside of the boat. Install the hull ID first and then the 4 rivets on top of the capacity plate. My capacity plate is looking a little ratty at this point. You could replace these. You can find custom ones online where if you give them your information, they'll get you a new one. So if you're looking to just replace your capacity plate instead of reinstalling one after painting, it would be the same process. Just drill out the rivets, get the new one, re-rivet it on. Not only does it look much cleaner when you do a paint job to not paint over your capacity plate, it also keeps you legal. You need to have this on display and easily readable for like the Coast Guard inspections and stuff like that. So you really want to make sure that you do this right. This is just part of like your boater requirements. All right, guys, well, there you go. That has the rear hull ID plate and transom brace reinstalled along with the interior capacity plate. At this point, the exterior paint job is essentially complete. I think that it looks way cleaner and way more professional when you remove all the badges and tags, paint, and then reinstall them. If you just paint over everything, it really comes off looking pretty amateur. So if you're looking for that clean look on your paint job, definitely make sure you remove and reinstall all those pieces. So as you can see, this part of the video was recorded after the paint job was already complete. Just to give another quick update on the end here, I've had this on the boat for a couple weeks now, and I've been working in and around it. And so far, the paint has been very, very durable. I've been in and out of the boat myself with wood, aluminum, all my tools, and honestly, I haven't had any nicks or scrapes on any of the paint. So overall, for durability, it's really good so far. Overall, I am really happy with the color choice I went with. Again, this was the flat deep forest green. It ended up matching the color of the boat perfectly. You can barely see the transition from where it was painted into the boat. And that right there is a big key of why I chose this color. That way, just in case you do get some scratches on your boat, which, you know, there's no chance you're not gonna, it will be so easy to touch it up with spray paint because the color is gonna match really well. And it's not gonna show if it just scratches a little bit of the paint off because the undercolor is so similar to the paint that was used. Again, I am just really happy and surprised that I was able to do such a great paint job for about 20 bucks on this boat. I ordered a couple more cans to finish up the inside. I wasn't as big of a rush to get that done because I'm gonna be building out the interior here still. But overall, again, I just gotta say, this paint came out really good. It was a major milestone in getting things ready to start building out all the fun stuff on the boat. So I hope you guys found this useful. All right, guys, well, if you want to follow on with this jumbo build and see all the things I got in store, don't forget to subscribe. If you have any feedback on the paint job or any things I could have done better or some things you want me to try in the future, don't forget to drop a comment below. I always love to hear you guys' feedback. All right, thanks for watching.